finally, what we all have been waiting for and calling for and questioning why it wasn't happening. Stephanie White has stepped up to the plate in defense of Caitlin Clark. I could not believe my ears, guys. I could not believe my ears when I heard this. Stephanie White actually being bold enough to stand on business and protect Caitlin Clark.
Stephanie White just said out loud what almost no one else in the WNBA dares to admit. She went all in on the way Caitlin Clark's name keeps getting dragged into every single CBA discussion, even when Caitlin herself hasn't said a single thing. And here's the wild part. Stephanie didn't sugarcoat it. She laid it all out. So, let's take a closer look at what she said, why it's shaking things up, and what it means for the league. Honestly, do you think Caitlin Clark is being unfairly used by the WNBA and its players right now?
And it is Stephanie White talking about Caitlin Clark being brought up in a lot of these conversations in CBA by other people, and not her speaking herself. And I think this is a really interesting one. And it's clear from this answer, I've already listened to this, it's very clear from this answer that Stephanie White clearly, and Caitlin Clark, there's clearly a level of person, like they clearly really like each other as people.
Here's the situation. Stephanie White, head coach of the Indiana Fever, recently sat down for an interview, and that conversation is setting off shockwaves across the entire WNBA. It's got people talking everywhere, from players and coaches to media outlets and fans.
Saying what it is, these people are using Caitlin Clark, they're disrespecting, and
the problem is, this kind of thing can't keep happening. And to be clear, Stephanie White didn't go on some emotional rant or lose her temper. What she did was even more powerful. She spoke calmly and told the truth. Her exact words were, "I hate it all for Caitlin. She's a 23-year-old kid who loves to play this game, and she's a pawn in a lot of other people's games." That single line changed everything, because she's right. Caitlin Clark has somehow become the focal point of nearly every debate in the WNBA, whether it's about pay, skyrocketing viewership, media bias, or officiating. Her name always finds its way into the middle of it.
And then Caitlin Clark kind of getting brought into that, Caitlin Clark responding to it. What has been your overall assessment of that dialogue and as it relates to your star player?
Yeah, I mean, I hate it all for Caitlin. I feel like, she's a 23-year-old kid who loves to play this game, who is a pawn in a lot of other people's games and a lot of other people's narratives, and I hate that for her. We're coming into a time in the WNBA where we're kind of part of the growing pains of becoming quote-unquote mainstream professional sport is some of this stuff.
Think about it. Caitlin has hardly said anything controversial all season, yet she keeps getting pulled into every feud like she's the face of every issue in women's basketball. Stephanie White has finally had enough. When she says Caitlin's being used as a pawn, she's calling out everyone. The players, the league office, and the media. Every side seems to be using Caitlin to push their own agenda. And let's be honest, Caitlin Clark is the biggest name women's basketball has ever seen. She drives ratings, fills arenas, and dominates headlines. When someone brings that kind of attention, everyone wants a piece of it, but things have gone too far. Every time a player criticizes the league, Caitlin's name gets pulled into it. Whenever a new WNBA rule or policy is introduced, people immediately compare how it affects her. She's no longer treated like a person. She's become a marketing tool. And that's exactly what Stephanie White is pushing back against.
I do think that we are at a pivotal moment in terms of the league's history. And look, I was a part of the very first collective bargaining agreement of the WNBA, where we wanted insurance all year long, to now where it is growing and players do deserve more. And leadership needs to reflect where we are as a league, and also understand where we are as a league and where players' perspectives are coming from. And we have coaches on the sidelines, and Becky Hammond and myself, and of course Noelle Quinn, who was in Seattle, who played in this league.
White has watched Caitlin take physical hits on the court and verbal jabs off of it all season long. Through it all, Caitlin stayed composed. But let's be real, no 23-year-old should have to carry the weight of an entire league's politics. When Stephanie calls her a pawn, she means it. The WNBA uses Caitlin to sell tickets. Players use her to push for better pay. The media uses her for clicks, and fans, they're left watching a league that seems more focused on drama than basketball. Here's what makes Stephanie's words hit even harder. She's not just defending her player. She's speaking as someone who's been part of this league since day one. She remembers when the WNBA had to fight just to get basic benefits like healthcare or year-round pay. So, when she says these are growing pains, she's talking from experience. Back in the early years, players were just grateful to have a league. Now they're demanding what they've earned: fair pay, respect, and real leadership. But the people at the top are still playing catch-up. Stephanie made it clear, leadership needs to reflect where we are as a league. Translation? The league's leadership is stuck in the past. She didn't have to name Commissioner Cathy Engelbert. Everyone knew exactly who she meant. Because right now, nearly every controversy circles back to her. Engelbert has been under fire for months, from downplaying player concerns to making awkward remarks about Caitlin's endorsement money. She's managed to frustrate both the fans and the athletes. So when White says, "We need better leadership," that's her polite way of saying, it's time to get it together, and she's not wrong. We've seen too many situations where the league completely fumbles something simple: inconsistent officiating, poor communication, or nonsensical fines. It feels like the people running things don't know how to manage success, because yes, the WNBA is growing, but that growth is because of the players, not the front office. As Stephanie said, your employees are your number one asset. The players are the league, yet they're the ones constantly feeling overlooked. Remember when Nafisa Collier called out Engelbert for bad leadership and even claimed the commissioner said, Caitlin Clark should be grateful for the platform? That story blew up. Instead of addressing it directly, Cathy released one of the most robotic statements imaginable. Then Sophie Cunningham called her the most delusional leader the league's ever had. Lexi Hull backed Collier, and Becky Hammon threw shade over the refereeing. And now even Stephanie White, someone known for her composure, has joined in. If that doesn't show how deep the frustration runs, nothing will. Outro. At the end of the day, Stephanie White didn't just defend Caitlin Clark, she held up a mirror to the entire WNBA. What she said wasn't about one player. It was about accountability, leadership, and the future of women's basketball. The league is growing fast, but unless the people in charge start growing with it, all that progress could start to crumble. So, what do you think? Is Stephanie White right about Caitlin Clark being used as a pawn? And does the WNBA need a major reset at the top?